Greetings and welcome to Mount Olympus. I am Hercules Invictus, and today on Living Mythology, I'm proud to bring you the Pep Talk, a legacy show with John Carl Pepe. Greetings, John.
Greetings, Hercules, and belated happy birthday. You had a birthday about a week ago, exactly. I know because your birthday is the day after my mother's,
Happy
so it's
birthday. Oh,
thank you. So it's very easy to remember. Like I always say, my mom was born May 30th, 1939, which is some of us in our world know is the cover date, May 1939 of Detective Comics number 27. So my mom is as old as Batman. I've never seen my mom and Batman in the same place at the same time, so she could also very well be Batman. Just to put that out there. So. So yeah, we're going to get into it tonight. Again, Hercules, thank you so much, as always, for giving me this opportunity. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Pep Talk. It is June 7th, 2026. And what that means is that we have begun big summer movie season. And one of my favorite things as a kid growing up was the anticipation of the summer movie. And we did a couple of shows last year about the summer movie. So I want to kind of continue that. And I am really excited about tonight's topic. It is a movie that I have loved ever since I was a kid and opened up my eyes to this fantastic world by a very prolific yet short-lived writer by the name of Robert E. Howard. So as if you haven't figured out by my little backdrop there with change the action figures up a little bit, we're going to be talking about Conan the Barbarian, specifically the 1981 film starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, directed by John Milius. But we're going to also probably delve a little bit into Conan lore as well. And I'm very happy to have my guest tonight. He is a gentleman I've gotten to know very well over the last few years as a regular at the Joker's Child Comic Shop in Fair Lawn, New Jersey, where I do sling comic books on a daily basis. And he is not only one of my favorite customers, but one of my favorite human beings in my interactions with him in the store. And he's very knowledgeable and really loves and lives and breathes not just comic books but cinema, and is just a wonderful person to talk to in the store. So I'm very grateful for this opportunity to talk to him on my fake talk show. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's give a warm welcome to Scott Osinga.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate being here.
Oh, I appreciate you being here, man. Thank you for doing this.
Absolutely.
So before we begin, let's um let's hear a little bit about yourself first. Your origin, how you got into comics, how you got into movies. Give us like a little bit of a log line, the elevator pitch for Scott Osinga, the big blockbuster movie.
Sure. I was a moviegoer all my life, and probably it stemmed out of my love of sci-fi. I was a Star Trek guy, Space 1999 guy, then I followed it into the movies. Sci-fi, love sci-fi. Star Trek, Star Wars, Planet of the Apes. I ate all that stuff up. So that was high school and college. I loved, absolutely adored it. Became fanatical about it. You asked me, I mean, you asked me about a particular director that I saw his movie. I researched and see all his back movies. I mean, John Milius, who directed Conan, I've seen all his movies. I know he's a prolific writer. I followed his career. Conversely, I'm a college graduate. I went to grad school for education, undergraduate for communication, uh, creative writing. So, but cinema was, if you ask me, cinema is my true first love. As you can see behind me, everything's represented there with Mr. Spielberg on the wall, Mr. Kubrick on the wall. So yes, I am a film fanatic, cinephile, as you would call it. But I also, in that time, developed a big love for movies. Comics. I'm sorry, comics. Mike Grell, in particular, was my starting point. The Longbow Hunters when I was in college. Granted, I had read when I was younger, the Neil Adams, Denny O'Neil stuff, but it was Mike Grell's Longbow Hunters that brought me back full force. And as you could tell from me being in the store, I am a Grell fanatic, DC fanatic, and I'm just a huge DC guy. Anything Green Arrow, I guess it's the whole Robin Hood mythology set in the modern day setting. I think the Neil Adams, Denny O'Neil Hard Traveling Heroes series is one of the best things ever written. So maybe I'm a little biased with that, but I think it's good stuff. Um, Went to college for education and communication. I taught public speaking, creative writing for a while. Now I work in management. I teach merchandising skills. So it's been an interesting life.
Very good, very good. That is fun. That's a nice little backdrop. That's a good little bio there. I dig that. Yeah, I mean, I think we do have a lot of shared interests, and I think what we're going to try to accomplish tonight is going to be a little bit of a pastiche. I want to almost kind of go sort of not necessarily scene by scene, but almost bits by bits throughout the chronology of the movie, and then we'll kind of share our thoughts or how it affected us as a kid. But I think it's also going to be sort of we'll lead a little bit with how we when we first saw the movie, how the first movie came into our lives and things like that. And I don't think we're going to really get to everything that I want to get to, not only on this movie, but as well as some of the other things that I would love to talk with you about.
Sure.
So this might be the first of many. And maybe at some point I feel like we would have a really fun time doing some sort of expanded special episode where we would actually do a commentary, just watch the movie
Sure.
and comment, and then we could just put that up, obviously without the movie, and people
I recently watched it again. It's funny at times.
Oh, it is. Oh, okay. So we'll get into it. But yeah, it is. There's perfect movies, and then there's near perfect movies, and this is a close to near perfect movies. There's so much that works in this movie, despite so much going against that.
Sure.
But before we get into that, I feel it's important for us to begin tonight with a prayer. Crom, I have never prayed to you before. I have no tongue for it. No one, not even you, will remember if we were good men or bad, why we fought or why we died. All that matters is that two sat and talked about a movie. That's what's important. Valor pleases you, Crom, so grant me one request. Grant me a great episode, and if you do not listen, then to hell with you. So, yeah, I thought that was a little bit of fun there. So Conan the Barbarian, an amazing and fantastic film that I think, directed, as we said, by John Milius, came out in 1982.
82. It was supposed to be an 81 Christmas movie, but it got delayed.
Yeah.
So.
And so for me, the other thing that's neat about this is big movie season. You actually saw big movie of the week, Masters of the Universe.
I did.
And maybe later I'll ask your log line thoughts on that. But again, there really would be no Masters of the Universe without this specific movie. Not just Conan the character, because Conan the character, as I hope everybody now knows, existed in the 1930s as a pulp fiction character created by Robert E. Howard.
Yep.
Robert E. Howard died young, tragically. I recommend anyone see the movie The Whole Wide World.
With Vincent Philip D'Onofrio and Renee Zellweger. The guy was a little crazy, I think.
Oh, 100%. I mean,
Oliver Stone said Oliver Stone, the guy's crazy. The guy was nuts.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I mean, growing up in the plains of Texas, in that era, sure. But very much a man's man at the time, and yet still, a mama's boy as well in a lot of ways.
You heard the story about how he came up with Conan.
That he was writing and he felt this presence
behind him, and he wrote it at night only. And he was afraid to turn around or Conan would decapitate him or something.
Right. Which is a great writer's version of how he created a character.
Sure.
Because again, the first Conan story is a reworked Kull story.
Sure.
So it's really funny. It's a very chicken and the egg scenario as far as that what he presented out there, but it is such an amazing imagery, and that's sort of the thing. Like people's always said about Robert E. Howard's writing, that it's so raw in the fact that it's as if you're sitting at a campfire and Conan is telling you these stories.
Sure.
And that is the vibe, which, to just jump ahead a little bit, the comic adaptation that Marvel did of Conan the Barbarian in 1982 is told from Conan is the narrator, which is very fascinating because you get insight into his head that you don't necessarily, in words, that you don't necessarily get in the movie.
Absolutely.
So when I was a kid, when I first saw this movie was being advertised, I knew Conan as a Marvel Comics character because in 1971, Marvel brought him to comic publication. And I was very upset when I saw that this was an R-rated movie because I remember I really liked Thor at the time, and I knew Thor was a Marvel character, and I was complaining, around the house to my older siblings who care less. Why are they making an R-rated Conan movie? It's like if they made an R-rated Thor movie, because I didn't know. I had a book and record set from Bradley's and Ramsey,
Oh, yeah.
and like a savage sword of Conan that I guess I probably was tame enough, I guess, for me to be able to have at that young of an age. But I knew him as part of the Marvel Comics stable, so I felt offended as a fan, as a child of that. You were at a different place
I
when
was.
this now. So were you a fan of what? Let's tell your story with Conan. Where were you introduced to Conan?
I was introduced to Conan August 1981. As I had mentioned previously, I was a superhero guy, a sci-fi guy, Star Trek, playing games. It was the September issue of Sin Fantastic. The preview. This was my introduction to Conan. I said, "What is this? This is phenomenal." Granted, I had seen sword and sorcery movies prior to that. A year earlier was John Borman's Excalibur. Phenomenal, phenomenal, phenomenal movie.
Love
But it
that movie.
was the August Sin Fantastic introduced me to the magazine, introduced me to the character, introduced me to Conan, introduced me to the whole world of Robert E. Howard. So I thank that.
So in 1981,
I was a
sci-fi fan of a certain age, if
Yep.
you want to divulge, go
I was a
ahead.
sophomore in high school.
Sophomore in high school. So, and again, no internet, obviously, but there was you did not even know about Conan as a comic book character.
I knew about it, but it wasn't my thing.
Gotcha. Okay, you didn't gravitate towards it.
No, I was a superhero guy, the sci-fi guy, Twilight Zone, Star Trek. That was my thing.
Right on. Because a lot of people who read the comics, that would then lead them to the Robert E. Howard, and then of course, whatever camp you are in the DeCamp Carter camp situation.
Right.
But credit where credit is due, they did keep that character alive for almost 40 years, right?
Well, it was 32 in 1932 he was introduced.
Yep.
And then he had a little bit of lull, and he came back full force in the 60s.
Yeah. So then that 30-year span, like they did that work. They in the 60s, they were the ones that made sure that these at that time lost works of Robert E. Howard were out there to the public.
And we also have to thank Frazetta for the huge impact on creating this character. I was familiar with Frazetta's artwork. Don't get me wrong. I wasn't blind to fantasy, but it wasn't my thing. John Milius turned me around with that. Excalibur turned me around with that. The movie Dragon Slayer, which I adore, turned me around with that. I even love Deathstalker. I mean, I got a soft spot for that movie. There's this book, I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's called Barbarians. From Conan to He-Man, the Conan exploitation films.
Yeah.
It lists everything, and a lot of them are really hard to watch, painful, but there's some really gems in there.
Yeah. Oh, it opened up the floodgate. The late great Albert Payne's Sword and the Sorcerer, one of my favorites,
which was reviewed on the same episode of At the Movies with Siskel and Ebert. They reviewed Sword and the Sorcerer and Conan in the same episode.
Oh, that's tough. That's a tough comparison because Conan would just buries that movie. It's on its own. That movie's okay. Again, pushes some credibility with the sword, which as a kid was the coolest thing.
Oh yeah, they were split on Sword and the Sorcerer. Gene liked it, Roger didn't, but they both loved Conan. And Roger's one complaint about Conan, which is mind-boggling, he said the music was too much at a time. I said, too much at a time? Basil's music makes the movie.
It is one of the greatest movie soundtracks of all time. And one of the things that you mentioned Excalibur, which again, another movie I saw as a kid and I just loved, again, watch these things at too young of an age, but boy, thank God I did, and Excalibur is such a great yet frenetic. It's almost a movie at war with itself at times, but it is such a great telling encapsulation of La Mort d'Arthur, the King Arthur story. And it is just, just a wonderful visual pastiche and a great soundtrack, but a great soundtrack mostly made up of other works.
Wagner's music.
And famously, there is the Carl Orff Carmina Burana towards the climax, which Basil Poledouris apparently was actually going to use that.
Yes, I heard that as well, and he changed it because
of Excalibur. And he's like, oh, I got it. Which again is weird because I find like that I could see him using it as a placeholder,
right?
Or Milius using it as a timing thing, which much like Basil's Poledouris' Conan the Barbarian score was later used by a lot of composers as timing or placeholder music, right?
You know the story about Basil's writing the Conan story. He started composing it before the movie started production.
Yep.
He's composed based upon storyboards.
Mm-hmm.
Basil, I don't know if you knew this. Basil went to USC. He was with John Milius, with George Lucas, with Dan Glutt, with Walter Muck and Randall Kleiser, all in the same class.
Yeah.
Basil did the score for him, and Dan Glutt, a Marvel comic writer, wrote the adaptation for the Conan movie. He's very faithful to his people.
Oh, very much, which is interesting because some of the things that I do like about the Conan adaptation or the movie special, right, is the fact that it is definitely working from an earlier shooting script because there are definitely some differences. And that it is also told from Conan's point of view, that Conan is telling you this tale, which is an interesting place because this movie is, if you look at the greater Conan mythology, whether in the books or in the comics, when the comics again do pretty much pull from the books, whether it is, in the 70s when Roy Thomas was doing it, heavily pulling from the DeCamp Carter stuff, as well as the Robert E. Howard stuff. As far as doing timeline stuff, I feel. Correct me if I'm wrong on that.
As far as
just how much of the DeCamp Carter, because I'm trying to figure out where Roy Thomas was on the DeCamp Carter spectrum, and I'm trying to think because I know he adapted a lot of Robert E. Howard stories, he also tried to fill in gaps between them. I think he was actually putting aside some of the DeCamp Carter stuff, and so that again is where you get the conflicting timelines for various versions of Conan, because the comics do strive to stay to weave stories in between and including some of that existing Robert E. Howard material, but yet I feel like there might have been a couple DeCamp Carter stuff that just because that's what was there had to get folded in, right.
Now Thomas wrote the first screenplay for it, for Conan.
Yep.
And then Oliver Stone took over. And Oliver Stone, and Milius even said this later on, most of Roy Thomas's stuff he didn't use. He said it was a fever dream. And Oliver Stone's, on the other hand, script was phenomenal, but a $40 million movie at the time.
It was a Mario Puzo-sized Superman script.
Yeah, it was huge.
Yeah.
So.
And did a lot of crazy things too, which we've talked about. That Oliver Stone was firmly really wanted to sell that the movie took place in a post-apocalyptic future that was reverted back to prehistoric type barbarian times. He also leaned really hard into the supernatural. That supernatural was a thing. Man beasts were a thing in this, which again is part of Conan. There were
supernatural elements in the final script.
But in the final cut, one of the geniuses that of Milius is keeps the supernatural very vague. It's all subjective. The biggest supernatural moment is the transformation of Thulsa Doom, right?
Correct.
Into the snake. And
also, when Conan is resurrected, the spirits try to get him that night.
Right. Sure.
Which really he put in there to establish Sandal Bergman's character's true love of him, that she would battle for him.
Exactly. And make that sacrifice, make that deal, right? Which does come in so
quickly at the
end. Yeah. And yeah, so that is there as well. But again, that still works, I think, as far as on a spiritual religious plane, as
Right.
far as someone coming to take the soul, because there you can make the case that he was dead in so much as he was unconscious, and they didn't know how, didn't have medical stuff to keep to monitor and keep him going, right?
Amelia said that was more leaning towards Japanese mythology.
Yes,
with
exactly.
The spirit coming, because Emilius was very influenced by Akira Kurosawa. There's a book out called Big Bad John: The Interviews. It interviews every one of it. He talks about every one of his movies.
Yeah.
I mean, I love a comment here he makes about Conan. If it hadn't been Arnold, we would have had to create somebody to be him.
Exactly. And yeah, you could kind of see that in the design of those spirits in the resurrection scene.
Right. Even the lettering on his face and the tattooing, that all goes back to Japanese lore.
Yeah. Which again, that's why you cast Mako, right? As the wizard, right? And
the narrator.
Yep, and the narrator, that one, yep. And so but the idea of when you see a human transforming into a snake, you look at the circumstances, look at the room and what's happening in that room, and that there's probably a lot of psychedelics being ingested, even pumped through the air in that place, right? So even though your principles, I think the Conan comes the closest, I think, to actually seeing it, but doesn't quite, I think, see it, right? As far as the way it's cut. So I love that subjectiveness of that especially in that moment, you're not really seeing what you think you might be seeing.
And there's no CGI at this time. So everything is practical effects.
To a dangerous degree.
It's all practical effects.
Yep. Yeah.
But there's one thing interesting. I think I mentioned this to you. Pressman was the one who started the whole ball rolling, and he saw Arnold in Stay Hungry. Pumping Iron. And he said, we have to find someplace for him, and they couldn't get it made, and they offered it. Believe it or not, Milius wasn't the first choice to direct. It was Alan Parker of the Wall fame, and Ridley Scott. I can see Scott doing it to a degree. But I think Milius is the right person for it. I call this movie the perfect storm. I mean, you got a bodybuilder, a surfer, a dancer, a Oakland Raider football player, and a guy who thinks he's a modern day Hemingway, making this modern day classic.
Yeah, and don't forget Franco Colombo as a Wolfman guy at the very beginning, and I always wanted to see more of that guy. Right, I always want to see him carry through later on.
But I couldn't even believe they were looking at Charles Bronson and Stallone as possible Conans.
Right. No, definitely not. And Arnold had, done, famously Hercules in New York as Arnold Strong. He was Mickey Hargitay in, I think, the James Manfield story. So it's the most 1980s movie ever made.
And then he did the movie The Villain, which was
exactly
with Kurt Douglas and Anne Margaret, directed by Hal Needham of the Smokey and the Bandit fame. Brutally bad.
Live action Looney Tunes cartoon.
Yeah, it was.
But yeah,
I don't think they knew what to do with it with Arnold at the time.
No, exactly. But again, I think that was, as being the prototypical, Western sheriff here with the 7-shot 6-shooter. And for me as a kid, loving, Bugs Bunny and Wile E. Coyote stuff, that movie was amazing, because I was like, it's Conan, but he's doing this. Oh, this is great,
You had seen it before. You had seen it after Conan, or?
I believe I had seen it after Conan. It was on NBC Night at the Movies one night.
Gotcha.
And I had already known who Arnold Schwarzenegger was. Probably had already seen Conan, because I think
everybody did. He was a household name because of that Pumping Iron, because of Stay Hungry, because of. Yeah,
especially because of Conan. Well, the Villain made him a household name. The Villain is a curiosity. It's an asterisk. I think you and I are the only two people since I've seen this movie to have ever brought it up in a conversation.
Absolutely.
But definitely because of Conan, I think that was the movie that really did put him on the map for the general public, because that movie did fairly well on its budget. And
What I
And
didn't realize until recently, and I think I told you this, when Dino came on board, Universal there was a massive writing campaign to stop him from producing it because people were so upset that Dino De Laurentiis was producing it after the horrible King Kong of '77, Orca, and then Flash Gordon, which at the time was not well received because everybody said it was too campy.
yeah,
It's like Batman on the big screen, which was written by the same guy who wrote Batman. But people were upset. Don't let Dino do it. Dino did have a lot. There was a lot of battling with Milius, but Milius won out, obviously.
yeah. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I think that I think, location shooting, again, this one of the things I love about this movie and this era of movies specifically is what Richard Donner used for Superman, the verisimilitude, right? Everything feels authentic in this movie. Everything, even though, yes, there are some sets, but there's everything. So as much of it that could be shot outside is shot outside. It's like Raiders of the Lost Ark to me. That is the most authentic looking Indiana Jones movie, right? And again, that's that same 81, 82 era. Even
you bring that up, and Ron Cobb is the production designer on Raiders as well as Conan.
Yep,
So
exactly.
there you go.
Yeah, but even something like what Lucas accomplished with Star Wars, where everything was lived in and junky,
Oh, yeah.
and it felt real, even
Yep.
though it really wasn't. So again, and that's why I love that Milius, does just kind of flirt with the supernatural in that film, because it really does ground it, and I know that there's a famous thing where they said they cut a lot of Arnold's dialogue because they weren't sure if people would be able to hear him and things like that. But brother does so much good acting work with his eyes. You always know what he is thinking, and he goes from confused child thrust into a pit with another gladiator to a very learned and moral human being, especially by the end of that movie.
Yep. And he doesn't speak until the 24-minute mark of the movie.
Yeah. And
when he's asked what life is all about,
what is best in life, exactly.
Your enemies to set them,
see them driven before
you, and
hear
the lamentation of the women.
And it's funny because that a lot of people give him a bad rap and the character a bad rap without really seeing what's going on there. You had a great statement about it not that long ago, where you said it's a great representation of masculinity.
Oh, it is.
And top to bottom, again, writer, director, actor, character, right?
Yep.
But the operative thing there is, and it's important to remember, not toxic masculinity.
Oh, no.
True masculinity, because Conan feels he's not afraid of his emotions. He is given a concubine, right? When he is being held as the top fighter. And the first thing he does is he comforts her, right? And the way he is towards the princess, and of course the whole story and the love with Valeria, right? So I think that's a very important thing, is that for people to who gloss this movie over, take a look at it again and see really what's going on there, as far as, this guy who was orphaned brutally, and yes, there are leaps in narrative logic, as in really what happened to everybody else on the Wheel of Pain, and really with just turning that wheel day in and day out, like that's all you had, and it made you that. That's pretty impressive. It
was a good transition scene, though.
Oh, and brilliantly shot. Yeah. But it does have some gaps. Like I kind of want to know, like, a little bit more of what that life was like for him. Although we do get a good sense of it, because again, once he's thrown into that pit, he doesn't know what's going on, and he is now acting on pure adrenaline and pure instinct and pure survival, right? And a really neat touch with that is the red-haired Vanier, right? The one who takes him off the wheel and brings him to the pit, to be his fighter, and then again, for no reason, no explanation,
gives him his freedom.
Just gives him his freedom, because he saw something in Conan giving that answer. He saw that answer wasn't enough for Conan. That Conan doesn't know what's best in life. Because he hasn't really, he's lived it to a degree, but he doesn't know. He only knows confinement, and there was just something about that moment that changes this guy. And the brilliance of Milius is at the beginning when Conan is a child and he's brought to the Wheel of Pain, and the kid who locks him in, shackles him in, is the same guy. Shock, big red hair,
Yep.
big furry thing, and it's just so it's like, as a kid, he has always kind of like, he has grown with Conan as well. So it's a real interesting untapped dynamic there that you have enough information to get you to the next part in the movie, but there's like, it allows you, I think, as a viewer to sort of create, it's the gutters, right? The stuff that happens between the panels of a comic book.
Right.
It allows you that opportunity to sort of build that on that relationship in your own head canon. What's funny about the movie adaptation is it's an earthquake and it knocks everybody out and frees Conan, and then he goes running off. So I
you had mentioned toxic masculinity. He's also a product of his times. He's very well represented of the 80s.
Oh, sure.
The machoism, the patriotism. And you mentioned he doesn't show his emotion. I love the fact later on, Subotai cries for him.
Cries for him. Yes.
Because he's Conan. He will not cry.
He will not cry. But you know through Arnold's performance that he feels.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's I think what's important. But yes, the standing brave in the face of battle, or even in the prayer to Crom, to be like, look, I know I'm supposed to worship you and fine, but if you don't help me, then I guess that's it. To hell with you. Yeah, I got no time for you, and you talked earlier about the age of practical effects, right?
Yep.
And sort of the perfect storm. And I always think that this movie is the perfect storm, but almost in a different way, because there was so much that could have gone and did go wrong during the production.
Oh, yeah, they were filming in Yugoslavia first, and they had to move to Spain because of a military complex. It worked in its benefit.
Yeah, of course. Now, knowing what I know of Milius is, I feel like he was all for staying in Yugoslavia during this. Be like, no, I'm down. Let's watch this. The
one thing I loved about Milius was he didn't cast based upon talent. He cast upon looks.
Yeah.
He said George Lopez is Subotai, because they were trying to find, when they were casting, we got to get somebody who looks like him.
Yeah.
And Sandal Bergman. He saw her in All That Jazz.
All That Jazz. Bob Fosse.
And he said she is a Valkyrie. She looks a Valkyrie.
Yeah.
And he said, I need big guys. Get all these Danish guys.
Yep.
Ben Davison, the Oakland Raider.
Let's get an ex-NFL star. Yeah.
It was a perfect storm. It's just everything came together right.
And for people who weren't, natural actors, like Jerry Lopez, he gets
Jerry Lopez. Sorry, it's George.
Yeah, I'm sorry. He gets a great he gets great reactions and responses out of him. He is definitely, I think in that respect, even though casting on looks, still an actor's director. Right. It's just, as an actor, you have to be able to take orders from the general, and you got to be ready to march when he says march.
And it's funny you say general, because Milius refers to himself as a general.
Exactly. That's right. Yeah.
He refers to all his movies as military campaigns.
Exactly. That's a great aesthetic. It's in some respects, it's almost Werner Herzogian levels of insanity or commitment, but it does show up on film. It makes things look that much better and that much more invested.
Sure.
And and I think one of the things that Milius does is he casts for look because he can make the camera love these characters and these actors, right? These performers. None more so in this movie, I feel, that Valerie Quinessen, if I'm pronouncing that correct, the princess, who tragically died several years ago in a car accident, or shortly, I think several years after this movie. She only did a couple other movies before and after this, but he, not only are there just so many great, just isolated shots, but every shot of her, with the snakes,
Yeah.
and the arms and that even that one shot of Thulsa Doom in that same moment, walking in with, and it's he's walking in front of and over the camera, so you see the flowing robes behind him as he walks out to address his throngs. And then this is another great Valeri quintessence moment is after Conan gets gets abducted, right, as he's trying to badly hide out.
Right.
I always equate that moment again. This is the sort of childish nature, that this idea that you're walking in with this big symbol that nobody else has in an ill-fitting robe, trying to fit in and doing it badly. You're like the guy, at MSG who sneaks onto the floor at a concert, and then you're so obvious about it that security, of course, catches you and brings you right back, or kicks you out, and so I do love that moment, that sort of like confidence but obliviousness, right?
Sure.
And then right after he gets hauled away, you got her coming down with the snakes on her hands doing the gang signs, and it's just such a cool shot, such a cool moment. And again, the illustration, movie's interesting. It does say a lot about cults and about how people can just get so pulled in, and then once it is shown to them, especially in the princess's character, how that could all fall away, and then how she like helps him at the end.
That brings me to one of the funniest scenes I saw in the movie. I said, "Oh my God, that's hysterical!" When they're trying to fight, Arnold's going around showing everybody the symbol. Have you seen this? Have you seen this? And the one guy goes, "Well, yeah, we thought it was just another snake cult, but this one stayed along a lot longer." I thought that was hysterical.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
That's when he punches the camel.
Which is another great, really funny moment too. And just sort of like little visual things like them walking around with just fried lizards on sticks, there's even things, and again, because it was a movie of its era, and there's doing practical effects, and again, it was dangerous. Like, they were not only were they using the collapsible swords and the squibs, the fake bloods and things like that, which again are painfully obvious, especially in the big transformation, the snake, Thulsa Doom into snake transformation scene, where you have guys who are just kind of walking around in like a helmet and like some leather straps, and then just a white gauze wrapped all the way around their waist. Clearly you see then it gets cut, and it's just for the blood, right? Or my favorite is the one guy who's just kind of back is to the camera, and he crosses in front of the camera, and then there's a swipe, and he just throws the blood over his shoulder. It is such a, it is one of those favorite, like, it's one of the things I love about movies, especially movies you love, is when you do watch them enough and you see the seams and you can never unsee them, but it doesn't diminish your love of the movie. Like Batman Returns, every time the Penguin's in the cemetery and he walks by that grave and it wobbles, I always see it, but I still love that movie. So it's always those little scenes with things like that. But it was very dangerous. Again, Arnold famously in that scene, I believe, or maybe there was the final fight.
I think it was the scene before when he got attacked by the dog, and the dog and he fell off
the dogs ate him alive almost,
and he fell off the mountain.
That was the first big thing to happen to him. The Rexor with the axe, I think, in that scene, or maybe the climax scene. He goes with the axe, right? And I think it's Ben Davidson, and Conan parries. The axe slipped off of the handle and hit Arnold in the shoulder, about an inch away from his head. And he said if he had been like that, it would have, hit him. So that's pretty scary.
Yeah, and I think Sandal Bergman also had an index finger that was dislocated.
Yeah,
because she did all her own stunts.
Yep,
which was amazing.
Yeah, and again, we always talk about how it launched Conan's career, but it launched a great career for her as well.
She had no idea she had no idea of the character. She had no idea of the medium. She was a Broadway dancer who was in a couple Bob Fosse productions and all that jazz. He saw her and he said, "She's the Valkyrie." Yeah. And she said, I even saw her in an interview. She said, "I had no idea anything about this. I met Milius and he said, 'You want to go for a ride on a hurricane?' And she said, 'Absolutely.' And the rest was history." So she was awesome. She actually won the Golden Globe for Best New Actress that year for
Yeah,
Conan.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And just again, was able to parlay a specific niche career, but was able to expand a little bit beyond that as well.
Yeah, it was the movie She,
Yeah.
which I suffered through. Then Hell Comes to Frogtown with Roddy Piper and her, which
At least she had Roddy Piper and Sandra
absolutely.
Bergen. Yeah. But no, she, and I know she, uh, showed up in V, again,
Yep,
the series was never as good as the original miniseries.
absolutely not.
And she was definitely underutilized in that show as well. But, she did all right, as far as, being able to work, and then winds up.
She retired, I think, in early 2003. She
Yeah.
shows up in conventions every now and then, but she's pretty much retired.
And then didn't she wind up almost full circle being wasn't she in Red Sonja? Wasn't she the villain in Red Sonja?
Was she? I'm not. I think you might be right.
Yeah. So that's also interesting too. The Conan sequel that couldn't be a Conan sequel.
The Red Sonja, which
yeah.
I mean, you've seen the Arrow video. Phenomenal.
Yes. Yes.
Absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
And then the follow-up was the Conan Destroyer. Looks amazing, still a turkey.
That movie again, you get Roy Thomas and Jerry Conway now writing the script. So they gave Roy
It's more of a comic book.
It's so much more of a comic book, and not even the Conan comic books that Roy was written. It is just very comic booky. And it's an interesting movie that tries to fit with the original, but it doesn't really. Like the beginning, they're at the funeral pyre for Valeria, and it is not the same locale. That was on a hill. They're in a valley, right? You have Tracy Walter, great character actor Tracy Walter, doing his best to shtick it up for the kids, but essentially is kind of is referencing things that he wasn't around for, but Subutai was.
Yep.
So I always wonder if it was originally written for Jerry Lopez, but once Milius was not part of it, they had to rework that. I always wondered about that. They made Arnold work out different, so he was more cut instead of,
because in the original he was doing horseback training, weapons training, and they wanted him to flow. They didn't want him to be bulky. They wanted his character to be graceful.
Yeah. And also, Conan didn't have a daily workout regimen. He just swung heavy swords and axes, which again is the musculature in the Frazetta artwork really does display that. There's like unevenness to it. And so that's that more fluid or I want to say like softer, less buff. Right. Yep. Arnold in the first one, again, more verisimilitude than oiled cut Arnold in Destroyer. Right. And yeah, that movie tries. They even got Basil Polidor's back to do the soundtrack.
Yeah.
It's just lesser. It's weird.
It's painful. It's painful after. I call it the dumbing down of America. I mean, Conan's great. Then you make the next one a PG-13. I know you're going for a bigger audience. Yeah. And then Red Sonja with Brigitte Nielsen, which is even more painful to watch. I mean, I tried to. I really tried. And I saw him in the theaters. I mean,
wow.
Yep. I mean, I saw Conan opening weekend, May 15th, 1982, at the Preakness Theater in Wayne.
Oh, the Preakness, nice. I think the last movie I saw at the Preakness was Indiana Jones: The Last Crusade.
And I saw it when it was still a single theater.
Wow!
Before they cut it up to a fourplex.
Yeah. So I was going to ask if you did get to see it, because after seeing that Cinefantastique magazine, that you were able to get to see it. So it's funny because and you did get to see it in the theater. And was this a movie that you saw multiple times?
It was. I saw it multiple times, and we had to have because I had a bunch of friends who were all into. And every time we go, we had to get our parents to buy our tickets because they were a little bit stricter back then. And we're all sophomores and juniors in high school. Nobody's 18 yet, but we were the right audience for it.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
So yes, I saw it multiple times and I loved it every time.
That's so cool. That is really cool. I did get to see Conan the Destroyer in the theater with my mom and my one of my friends at the time. That was interesting. I
saw it at the Pompton Lakes Colonial Theater when it came out. I think it was 84 when it came out. 2 years, I think it was 84, the second one.
So it's funny because before I ever saw the movie on HBO, remember my dad let me watch it mainly on the fact that I think that James Earl Jones was in the movie and Ben Davidson, right? My dad being a sports writer, but also loved film as well.
Sure.
So that was, I remember watching that movie and my dad saying, that recognize that voice, that's Darth Vader. That's an actor named James Earl Jones. He was also in a boxing movie called Great White Hope.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, cool. Like, because again, there was that for my dad, a movie about boxing. That was great, And so,
James Earl Jones did the movie because he loved Milius and he loved the character.
oh yeah, yeah, and again, like a villain who's not a Conan villain, but a King Kull villain, still created by Robert E. Howard, but just works really well in that world, in that movie. And it's funny, it begins that trend of movie adaptations doing the your greatest enemy is the one who created you.
He absolutely said, I would not be here if it wasn't for me. I created you.
Yeah, and then that
he gives that whole speech at the end that he is the reason for his existence or who he is.
Yeah. And that eventually gives us Jack Nicholson going, you say you made me, I say I made you, how childish can you get? So
Milius envisioned it as a trilogy.
Oh, yeah.
And he wanted to do it like every 2 years, like a James Bond thing. He said the first one was focused on strength. The second one was focused on tradition. And the third one, he said, will be focused on responsibility. I don't know if you remember at the very end of the movie where he's sitting on the throne.
Mm-hmm.
That was that's old Conan.
Oh yeah, that is Conan, King of Aquilonia. There's no doubt about that.
They were using that. They were going to use it when they was releasing it as a Christmas release in '81, and that was part of the trailers that they were going to use. So they tacked it on to the very end, which was supposed to lead into the sequels that sadly never happened.
I know.
Because Milius went on to do Red Dawn.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, again, had he been able to do Destroyer, yes, we probably would have gotten that third in the trilogy. And now it's something that, just every few years someone pulls out, even Arnold. Let's do it. Let's try and get this done. Let's try and get this done. And, I think it's still on the table. It is. That's an I'll believe it when I see it thing.
Well, Milius had a stroke in 2007.
Yeah.
So you went from one of the greatest storytellers in the world who almost couldn't speak again.
Yeah.
He said recently, King Conan is going to happen, and he will be involved in it. But it's just, and Arnold's right for it now. He's playing an old man. He is an old man.
It would work. Yeah, it would work. It would definitely work. I think a lot of the heavy lifting, and again, here's where you might get some sort of fandom pushback, is, would be played by whoever plays the son, whoever plays Khan, right?
Right.
And
just don't be Jason Momoa.
It's like, it's actually interesting, but I think he's even aged out now for that role, because for not only Conan but definitely for Khan, I think, but again, for those who don't know, it's going to have a sort of a Mutt Williams feel to it from Indiana Jones meets the aliens from outer space that aren't really from outer space, but so I think that's a really tough story nut to crack at this late stage in the game with Arnold.
I hope they do it.
I hope so too. I really do.
Unfortunately, Basil's no longer with us.
No.
So,
yeah,
and Rodden Cobb is no longer with us, so a lot of the original team's not there.
Yeah. But again, that's like, but the movie I want to see is the story of how Conan does become king. I think that's a great way to either end a second movie in that trilogy or begin the third, and then you have a little time jump, and then he's an older, more wiser, king, right? Things like that. But the story, of how Conan becomes king is a great story in and of itself. So it'd be really good to be able to see that. And yeah, unfortunately, enough time has passed that's a moment we will not see on screen.
I think we have the story of his father with Kevin Sorbo there. Is that Kull the Conqueror, which is supposedly in that realm as well?
Yeah, well, so there's a distant blood relation between Kull of Atlantis before it fell, and Conan's bloodline.
Yep.
But it's not like,
father son type. It's
not that
the
close.
same world though. It's the
yeah. It's the Hyborian. It's
yeah.
thousands of years apart though, right?
Yeah.
When
Oh,
Mako,
Conan.
what's up?
Poe's an ancestor of Conan, but the movie called was supposed to be the third Conan movie because Akivasha is from Conan stories, not from the cult stories.
Right. That's right. That's right. So
That's what I remember.
yeah, and so that's sort of that thing. So yeah, when Mako as the narrator talks about the days before the rise of the Sons of Atlantis or whatever,
Right.
or the rise of that's the days before, right? Or that's the like that, or even before that, right? Like so that call stuff is way down the lineage. And the Sumerian bloodline, obviously is a mix of others along the way
Sure.
as well. But yeah, again, that's a great, easy way to be like, well, that's why the first Conan story was just a reworked Cull story. They're very similar characters because they're related.
Yep.
No, it's funny. So I'm so happy that you did get to see it in the theater because that must have been a wonderful experience.
Oh, it was phenomenal.
My first exposure to the movie was the Mad Magazine parody done by the late great Don Martin, which is such an interesting choice to do the Conan parody. But he also did the Excalibur parody, which was my first time experiencing Excalibur, was the Mad Magazine parody by Don Martin. And it's funny, we were talking about some of those gags still stick with me. I remember my mom was very upset that I was reading something that said Conan the Barbiturate because barbiturate was a drug.
Right.
Right. And then we were talking about the resurrection scene and there's this line in there where they're like, what are these spirits? And I think it's Subutai or Subtotal as he's called in that parody. He goes, oh, they're just leftover effects from the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark or something like that, which I thought that was
That's
very
awesome.
funny. Yeah. So in the 8 minutes we have left.
Wow, that flew.
It did. We're gonna have to do some more, definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Give me some final thoughts on this movie, first time watching it, and this recent rewatch. What is it? I know we've talked a lot about it, but really, what in a nutshell is it about this movie that never gets old for you?
Well, I mean, I think the first time I saw it, I fell in love with the world, the Hibernian world, Conan's world, the characters, Sandor Bergman, Lopez's character, Subutai, Mako. I mean, Thulsa Doom, the characters, the story, which I think was ripped off by Beastmaster a couple of years afterwards. But hey, that's another story for another day. But it was a great adventure. And then rewatching it recently, I said, Conan's an anti-hero. That's really what he is. He's the reluctant hero who, at the end of the movie, does the right thing. He brings the princess back. He defeats Thulsa Doom. It's just, when I first saw it, I did never put the anti-hero equation in there until rewatching it recently. And that he's the true anti-hero, the hero who didn't want the role but was forced into it. And it seems like no matter what's given to him, he will do the right thing. One of my favorite Arnold roles. I think he was born for it. He said John Milius and Cameron, was it James Cameron, made him who he is, and I believe that.
Mm-hmm.
He is Conan. He is Conan. I mean, like Milius said, if it wasn't for him, they would have had made somebody to be him. He was Conan. He was Frazetta's artwork come alive. He was a Death Dealer come alive. He was Conan. Mm-hmm. It was just, like I said, the perfect storm. All these people coming together to make, I think, a classic, easily a classic. Yeah. That still holds up. Like I said, the Arrow video that came out a couple of years ago with the 4K restoration, amazing, mm-hmm. Amazing. I think it holds up. It works well. It's a great story. It makes you want more. It made me want more. I went back and I started reading the Howard stuff. I watched the Vincent D'Onofrio movie about his life. I found out what a nut he really was. And I went full force into the sword and sorcerer movies of the 80s. I saw Deathstalker in the theater. I saw Deathstalker 2 in the theater. I saw Sword and Sorcerer in the theater. That Dragon, anything. I said, oh my God, I got to go see it. I just loved it. It introduced me to a genre that I wasn't that into or that aware of before. It made me a fan of it. To this day, I'm a fan of it. And I thank it for that. I mean, that's what it did at the time. And now rewatching it again, I picked up on the humor. The humor is great. The whole anti-hero aspect of it, great. Milius's just passion comes through.
Oh, 100%. I feel okay, obviously, often imitated, never quite duplicated.
Sure.
Not even with Arnold's second go around, certainly not with Jason Momoa's attempt. And credit to them because they did try to weave in as many Robert E. Howard references as they could. I know there's a Tower of the Elephant reference in that movie and things like that. And you could try and place it in the canon if you want, or you just leave it, which is fine. Again, with the imitators, there were so many. My favorite attempt is if one Barbarian is great, well, let's get twins.
Oh, the
Barbarians.
Barbarians.
But
I think they're on the cover of they're on the cover of the book.
Of the book, yep.
The Barbarians.
And so, but
my favorite ripoff, I guess, was what I'm wearing here, Cull.
Yeah.
Krull.
Yeah, Krull. Yeah. Which again is that Star Wars Conan hybrid, much like Thundar the Barbarian. That aesthetic,
and
right?
Masters, yep.
So here's the thing about this specific movie and this version of Conan and this story that you said, because it is very different from the Conan of the books in a lot of ways, but the core of the character I think is still the same. But this movie resonates. This movie works because this is a textbook example of Joseph Campbell's Hero of a Thousand Faces. Yep. This is the power of the myth. This is what George Lucas was trying to make in this one movie. And boy, he must have been pissed when he saw this, because you have the young hero rising against all odds, learning, growing, getting, indoctrinated into the secret art of fighting, right? And then you have the death and the resurrection and the redemption and then that rise to power, because there's almost that assumption at the end. And there is that cutscene where King Osric, great Max von Sydow role,
where he was killed by his guards.
He gets killed. So you could also make that leap as a viewer of Conan brings the princess back. There's no king by his own hand, hither came Conan, raven-haired, and the world will tremble under his sandaled feet. That is what Milius does with this movie, and with a near impossible script, but that he was able to whittle down that Oliver Stone wrote and really refine it and find the nuts and bolts of it. It is full of, like I said, just some gorgeous scenery and gorgeous shots. It loves its actors. It loves its audience. It doesn't treat the audience. It doesn't talk down to the audience.
Nope.
And again, it keeps it moving, so where even the slow parts are still interesting.
Absolutely.
When Subutai and Conan are talking about theology with that great score, again, a score that is not just short little 30-second to 1 minute bursts of music.
Yep.
Each composition, each track is a full composition, and it's wonderfully used in this movie.
It's a part of the movie. It's like John Williams' score for Jaws. It's a part of the movie.
It so much is, and God bless John Milius for bringing this work to the world, and that it does still resonate and does still stand, like I said, as a perfect example of a classic hero's tale.
Because I think it's John Milius. I give the credit to him. He's the ultimate storyteller. I sometimes think he's a better writer. I mean, having written the Indianapolis speech in Jaws, the Napalm speech from Apocalypse Now, Make My Day from Dirty Harry, the guy is a phenomenal storyteller. What's to say? Sean Connery called him this generation's Hemingway.
On that note, wrap up today's conversation. Does anyone want to give their contact information? Any last word?
Sure, Scott. If you want people to reach out to you, let us know. If not, we'll definitely have you on again, because this has been a blast talking.
It has been an absolute blast. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks. Folks, you can catch me every business operating day at the Joker's Child in Fair Lawn, New Jersey, if you happen to be that way, or you can certainly reach me on Facebook at John Carl Pepe. That's really it for my contact and social medias. I don't do too much. I do this. I do another indie comic review show that's on hiatus, but we're going to bring that back soon. And with that, folks, we will next see you with the one day after this country turns 250 years. And we're going to celebrate 4th of July, 250th anniversary of our country by talking about James Bond.
There you go.
We'll see you then.
Awesome.
Very much. And two pieces of information I will share. The original person slated to play Khan was The Rock, fresh after the Scorpion King, when there was a resurgence in Conan the King being made. And also the script of the Conan the Destroyer. The original script was made into a comic book by Marvel at some point, the graphic novel. And it was Subutai who was supposed to be in the second film, as well as Conan, not Malik, who's a later addition.
Awesome. Thank you. Yes, I knew about the
Thank
graphic
you.
novel, but never had a chance to read that. So cool. Good to know.
You all, gentlemen.
You too.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I had a great time.
Thank you, Scott. And folks, thanks for watching. We're glad you spent some time with us. We'll see you again in a month.